Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 918 of the Juicebox Podcast. Here's a little behind the scenes on the podcast for you. This episode has been recorded recently. It wasn't supposed to go up for months. In fact, it was slated to go up a few weeks before school started back up. But I saw a post online today that is this exact same problem. And I thought, God, how many kids are going through this? So I just wanted to get this up now. This episode is with Christina. Her daughter has type 1 diabetes. She's about 11 years old. And she experienced some comments from school children that really led to the regression of her diabetes. And Christina and I talked about how to handle that today. I hope you enjoy it. While you're listening, please remember that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan or becoming bold with insulin. If you'd like to support the podcast while getting great sheets, towels, and clothing, use the offer code JUICEBOX at CozyEarth.com to save 35% on your entire order. BetterHelp.com/Juicebox will save you 10% on your first month of therapy. And athleticgreens.com/Juicebox will get you 5 free travel packs and a year of free vitamin D with your first order. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by the blood glucose meter that my daughter's been using for years. And this is no secret, it's my favorite one that I've ever used. The Contour Next Gen blood glucose meter. ContourNext.com/Juicebox. Check out the Contour Next Gen, the Contour Next One, the full line of meters. Fantastic website. I know, it's hard to believe there's a great website that's about meters, but this one's got a ton of information on it. ContourNext.com/Juicebox. Links in the show notes and links at juiceboxpodcast.com to Contour, Dexcom, Omnipod, US Med, Touched by Type 1, BetterHelp, all of the sponsors. When you click on the links, you're supporting the podcast.
My name is Christina, and I live in California, and I have 3 kids, 11-year-old. She is my type 1. And then I have a 9-year-old who's also a girl, and a 4-year-old who's our little boy.
1194?
1194.
1194. 4 is the youngest, is a boy. The other 2 are girls, and the 11-year-old has type 1. I got it. Okay. How old was your daughter when she was diagnosed?
It was actually, she's sort of a newer one. Mm-hmm. It was in 2021 in December.
Okay.
So, we got COVID at Thanksgiving and came home, and we all were just, well, actually not all of us. 3 of us, husband, me, and our oldest, we had COVID. And it's kind of the same story, somebody gets a virus. And then we all had different symptoms. Mm-hmm. And she kind of just slept. She was sleeping, eating, and I just thought that's how it hit her.
Yeah.
Then she started not eating very much. And then it got to the point where she wasn't eating at all. And then it got to the point where she couldn't keep anything down. So it was, and then she would, she did the chug the water in the middle of the night thing, because she wasn't doing that before. Mm-hmm. She just always, as a kid, drank a lot of water. So I didn't have that sign ever before. And so I was just thinking, you know what? She's really dehydrated. She's probably going to be admitted. So I'm just going to take her in the ER at our children's hospital. And then took her in, and the nurse was kind of like, well, she hasn't eaten since Wednesday, really. And it was a Friday. And so she said, let's just take her blood sugar. And it was 491. And she right away was, and this is like in the waiting room where everybody's sitting. And right away she goes, yeah, I think, does she have type 1? And I said, no. And she said, I think we have like a new diagnosis. And I said, okay. And so from there, I told, my sister is a nurse. So I told her, and she's like, yeah, she's probably in DKA. And, they took us back really fast, and we were in the hospital for like almost 5 days. And which I'm actually thankful for, because a lot of times people, get diagnosed and then sent home 2 hours later. But I actually got to, get boot camp and ask them how to do things. And I didn't feel nervous going home. So I'm thankful she was in DK, even though I was scary, but I actually was able to like really know what I was doing.
Yeah. Well, that's excellent.
Yeah.
Really interesting too that the nurse picked it up so quickly, even in the waiting room. That's great.
Well, a week before, the nurse that we had at nighttime that night, he said, we had a boy in here almost the same age, same story, like came in with COVID, and he was in DK. And I think, maybe she was the nurse that saw him. I don't know, but she like right away picked it up.
Yeah. Wow. And that's something. That's great. I mean, it's nice to hear somebody know what they're doing. So excellent. Any other type 1 in your family?
My great grandma.
Okay.
So my grandpa's mom, when he was 22, he ended up like not going to college because he needed to stay home. And when I was a kid, I didn't know what she was sick with.
Mm-hmm.
But they just said she was sick. So he stayed and helped take care of her. And then when he was 22, she passed away, because back then, it was back in the 1800s when she was diagnosed.
Yeah.
So they didn't really have anything.
Sure. So she got type 1, and then they probably did that like real restrictive diet, high exercise, like that kind of stuff to try to keep her going.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's something. And that story got passed through your family.
Yeah.
That's interesting. It really is. And then, but that's a number of generations ago. So it's not something you're thinking about.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No, I actually, when we were because I grew up in Idaho. So we were all for Thanksgiving in Idaho, and we're sitting there, and I was talking with my mom and my sister, looking at Charlie and thinking like, oh, I've been like really thinking maybe it's an age thing. Maybe she's just not eating at lunch, and she's, girls go through stuff. And so she was getting really skinny, but I thought maybe but then when I would see her, she would eat like tons and tons of food. And so then it was like maybe a growth spurt. But at Thanksgiving, I was thinking like something wrong, like the C word, like maybe cancer. And I said it to my sister and my mom was like, well, is she eating? And my sister goes, Mom, she just ate 4 pieces of pizza and a big bowl of turkey noodle soup. She's not eating. So if I had to say any sign, that was the sign for me, knowing something was wrong. But it just was so hard to tell, because she's 11 and she's like 5'6" and really tall.
Oh.
So I just didn't
like maybe
like I just
she
thought,
was leaning out like yeah. Okay.
It's a growth spurt. Maybe it's a growth spurt, because she has size 10 feet. Now she does. Back then it was like size 9. But
Christina, I've been doing this for so long. That my takeaway from your story is that turkey noodle soup would sound good for lunch. You said that. I was like, oh, what a lovely idea. Yeah.
Yes. Just get a turkey. It's better if you cook the turkey and then use, the stock from that, and then the actual turkey. I like dark meat, but the white meat's okay too.
I don't know. I'm starting to think about it. And then I was like, what's wrong with me? She's telling me this story about how her daughter's like super thin, and she's like, maybe she has cancer. It could be a growth spurt. I don't know. And I'm like, boy, that turkey soup sounds good. Yeah. I've heard one too many of these stories is what I just realized, Christina. Okay. Okay. So
it's the same story,
Yeah. No. Well, it's what happens next. It's usually interesting. So, I guess my first question was your daughter was what, maybe 10 when she was diagnosed?
Yeah.
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 How did she deal with it?
You know what? In the beginning, she kind of was like, let's do this. Like she was at our hospital, they do the walk before you run thing. Because right now she's like on a pump, the CGM. But in the beginning, they had us do all the, MDI, which I'm thankful for again, because so many times we've just last week, her pod fell off at volleyball practice, and we were going through a drive-through, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I forgot, it fell off." She kind of, started to get like upset, like, "Oh, I'm not going to eat till I get home." And I said, "No, like if you're willing to give yourself a shot, you're fine, because I carry, all the stuff with me." So it's in that situation, nobody was freaking out except for her thinking she couldn't eat until she got home. So I'm thankful for that.
Yeah.
But I kind of forgot what we were talking about because
No, I was just asking how she dealt with it. You said she was doing well.
Oh yeah.
You made it sound like she came out of the gate strong, but then.
Oh, yeah. No, she came out strong. What we're running into now is burnout and peers and that type of stuff. She dealt with it fine. I'm just seeing now it catching up.
Peers.
Maybe that. Yeah.
Tell me about that. What's happening there?
Oh, and this is actually going to go into sort of the topic that I brought up that we could talk about, but she was completely fine doing it in front of friends. And then, she hit 6th grade, a boy makes a comment, and she stops eating or not pre-bolusing at school because she doesn't want to do it in front of friends or people she's comfortable with. So we're kind of running into that. She'll do it in front of her best friend. And it's really, now it's kind of simple. You just take out your phone, which people think is a phone, and then type in numbers and you're fine. But she is just so like, oh, they're going to know now, and doesn't even want to pull it out because she doesn't want the question or, the nosy comments.
It was the boy?
Yeah, it was the boy. The boy made some silly comment, and now she's like, oh, I don't want to have diabetes anymore. I don't want people to know. I don't want people to talk about it. It was just that one comment,
That's something.
I mean, yeah. And I've talked with her teacher about it, who's been a 6th grade teacher for, almost 30 years. And she said the bad part is it doesn't surprise her. She sees so much, like kids will wear sweatshirts in 90-degree weather because they don't want certain parts of their bodies to show, and they're sweating and their faces are red, but they will not take that sweatshirt off just because of peers.
Yeah.
So
well, that's something.
She said, yeah, it's just unfortunate that it's, a medical thing that is affecting her.
Yeah. Christina, before we move forward, I'm having trouble. Yeah. Your voice is fading out a lot with those headphones.
Oh, got it.
Do you have wired headphones by any chance?
Yeah, I do. Hold on.
Thanks.
Let's try this.
All right, Chat GPT. Let's see if you can write a podcast ad for the Contour Next Gen blood glucose meter. Wow, it works quick. Ready? Managing your diabetes can be a challenge, but with the Contour Next Gen blood glucose meter, you'll have the confidence and control you need to stay on top of your health. This state-of-the-art device offers exceptional accuracy, ensuring you get the most reliable results every time you test. That's actually true. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by the Contour Next Gen blood glucose meter. ContourNext.com/Juicebox. It says I should put a sound effect in of the meter beeping, but I won't be doing that. Let's see. The Contour Next Gen blood glucose meter comes with a user-friendly app that helps you track your glucose levels. That's actually true. You don't have to use the app, but you absolutely can. And it is pretty fantastic. The app lets you set reminders and keep an eye on your trends. It's like having your own personal diabetes coach right at your fingertips. Well, it's a lot like having an app, but I see what it's getting at. And for our valued podcast listeners, listen, guys, I've got a website, contournext.com/juicebox. You can learn a lot about the meters there. They really are terrific. They're super accurate, easy to use, easy to hold, absolutely fantastic. Favorite meters my daughter's ever used, hands down. So don't let diabetes hold you back. Take charge of your health and experience the freedom and peace of mind that comes with using the Contour Next Gen blood glucose meter. I believe that, by the way. It's a great meter. You need accurate tests. It's not mentioning the second chance test strips here, which, I mean, blows my mind because that's the best part of the meter. Obviously, you can touch the blood, not get enough, go back, get more, not impact the accuracy or waste a test strip. Second chance test strips are fantastic, which is not to say that the meter needs a lot of blood. It's just, if you mess up, you can go back without ruining the strip or the accuracy of the test. Seriously, fantastic meters. I love them. My daughter's been carrying them for years. They're great long-time sponsors of the podcast. contournext.com/juicebox. When you click on the links, you're supporting the podcast. There's links in the show notes of the podcast player you're listening in right now. Links at juiceboxpodcast.com. And of course, you can just type in contournext.com/juicebox, and you will be helping the podcast.
Okay. Here we go.
So much better.
Is this better?
Oh, yes. Wonderful.
Oh, good.
Thank you. It should be a lesson to all of you who got rid of your home phones. They sounded so much better. Just please.
I know, right?
$12 a month at this point to have a home phone with a wire on it. Just act old with me and make your stuff sound better. Okay. Wow. So did your daughter ever talk to you about the boy, or did you have to pry it out of her? Did she come tell you?
Oh, no. So I picked her up from school and she just was like raging. Anything that anybody said was annoying, and we're on our way to volleyball and nothing's working. She can't find anything. And it really was getting to the point where I was like, am I going to yell at her? Start saying bad words? I don't know. So what's your impression when she's complaining? Because what I hear, obviously not in your house and listening to the conversation, is this boy said something to her, sent her down a rabbit hole about this, and now she's very, very sensitive to everything that's happening or saying. But how is it impacting you though? Oh, no. So what it actually did was, and do you want me to answer how it's impacting us, or do you want me to tell you how it came out?
No, Christina, do the whole thing. We got time. Go ahead. How did it come out, and how's it impacting?
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I'm trying to so another thing that I do is I look at what her blood sugar is. Is she just freaking out right now because she has high blood sugar? Because that's usually what happens, is when she's acting that way, we've got we're rising up, but it wasn't that. And so finally I just say, is something going on? We gotta I always do this, let's reset.
Yeah. Because
that just stops the whole conversation. What's going on? And she's like, well, and I'm not going to say the boy's name, said to me that I can't eat this candy bar because I have diabetes and I ate too much sugar, and that's why. No. And I go in that moment, things had been building up, and I just go, that mother.
Yeah. Let's get him. I'm on board.
The kids,
yeah.
the positive thing is I don't normally talk like that.
Mm-hmm.
So when I do say something like that, the kids know I'm either serious or something's going on, and they just started laughing.
So it was good because they were like, Mom, you just said that.
You broke the tension. Yeah.
Yeah, broke the tension. And I was kind of like, well, I know I said that. I didn't mean to say that. And he's not really that. But like, he's just uneducated. Like, he has no idea what he's talking about. And I said, do you want me to say something? Do you want me to, go? Because we can't have this keep going on.
Right.
Like, we need to like do some education to this boy. And she's like, no, I don't want him to get in trouble. I don't want that. So what I eventually do, like I sent it, we literally had just pulled up to volleyball. She went off to volleyball and then gets back in the car, and it's like, doesn't bother her anymore because she got some of her frustrations out at volleyball, and I'm still bothered about it. So the next day I just picked her up from school and I said, hey, you know what? I'm going to just run in really quick. And she's like, no, Mom, no. And I said, I'm not going to like do anything. I'm just going to figure out how to handle this situation. Mm-hmm. So I just went in, and luckily the principal was sitting right there in the office. And coincidentally, that kid was sitting in a room in the office. And this kid is the kid that everybody is always like, oh, it was this kid. He did it, right? He said that. So he sort of has a reputation. Like he was in the office for being in trouble, most likely, when I got there. So I just said to the principal, look, a situation happened. And he's like, well, what was it? And I said, adults make uneducated like comments. So I know like that's where this is coming from. The kid said this. And I told Charlie that I just was going to mention it. She doesn't want him getting in trouble. But if it happens again, how do we go forward and handle it? Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of just what we did. And I'm pretty sure the kid heard the entire conversation. And so that was good. He kind of got talked to, but not really. I was able to say what I wanted to say to get it off of my chest.
Yeah.
And then it was just, put on notice.
Well, you're very, very adult and mature. Look at you. When my brother was in high school, I was kind of my brother's de facto parent. So my brother is like a junior in high school, which only makes me like out of high school for like 3 years. Uh-huh. And my brother gets into a fight with this other boy, and I get called to the school. My mom gets called to the school, but my mom doesn't have a car. She's not going. I'm going. So I go to the school, and I go into the office. I'm like, what happened? He goes, that kid is crazy. He's like, I don't know what happened. He just like flew off the handle. I'm like, look at me. I'm like, I don't care what you did, but you need to tell me so I know how to how to handle this. And he goes, it really wasn't me. He's like, he just like flipped. So the boys were sort of in the outer office sitting there, and the principal starts talking to me and the boy's father. And, try to imagine you're the boy's father. You're probably in your 40s. And like this 22-year-old guy shows up like to speak for the other person. You also have to be like, it's got to be just incensing. And I purposefully spoke in a way that would light the boy up, and then he flipped out and went after everybody, and I backed up and pointed to him, and I went, seems like we know what happened. And just like that, my brother got released, and I walked outside. I was like, let me know if you need anything else, and I went back to work. But
oh my gosh,
I looking back, it's funny, but it wasn't really. Like I saw the kid was unbalanced, and I just sort of said the things that I thought.
You poked the bear.
I poked him a little bit, and he flipped out. And I was like,
I'm just so curious as to what you said, though.
Oh, I don't remember. It's so long ago. I just remember doing it. I remember looking at the kid, assessing him as being unstable, and thinking, I could probably get him to flip out. So that's all. You were very much more an adult, obviously. By the way, that's why you shouldn't put 22-year-olds in charge of like adult problems. But
that's the whole, like, your frontal cortex has not developed yet.
No, I was all about like, how do I get my brother out of this? Like, I didn't even care about a resolution. I wanted the trouble to go away. But that's also a function of being really broke. Like, there's always this fear that if something goes wrong, it's going to cost money, or somebody will have to take a day off from work and you won't be able to. So you're always trying to like protect you have no money to speak of, but you're trying to protect it, basically.
Right.
So it's how I always saw stuff like that.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, my mom used to make, when my dad left my mom, she got a job making $4 an hour, maybe. And then by the time this story happens, I make like $5 an hour, and I'm doing like hard labor for $5 an hour.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so like, even just taking off a couple of hours to go to the school, or like in my mind, I'm like, oh God, what if this is a fight? Like, what if this goes to court? We can't afford court.
Oh no.
We can't, like my mind just kind of like ran through that. So I was defending, our bottom line, which our total savings was $400 probably. So, anyway, but I like the way you did it much better. I'm much more.
Yeah. I have been, in a school office once or twice before.
Yeah. Wasn't your first day.
Yeah.
So does this bring any comfort to your daughter or no?
No. So that's the thing. We're still, working on this behavior of hers now so it's formed a new behavior. Mm-hmm. This thing with this boy, now it's kind of like she doesn't want to have, like, it's a major burnout.
Yeah.
Okay. But on the highest level, because she's sort of, not helping herself out at all, because she will go to school, like anytime she's with me, it's like great charts, great graphs. We're pre-bolusing 20 minutes before, doing all the stuff. But then the second she leaves me and there's peers around, especially, it's like, I don't have this anymore. And I'm just going to make up for it when I get home from school. Or if I go to the bathroom and I remember, I'll correct.
Yeah, she really doesn't want anybody to say it.
So that's actually currently an active thing we're working on. Mm-hmm. And, I've tried the like rewarding her, this thing is this thing that I've been doing with my middle one for years and years and years. It's ABA, it's applied behavior analysis, where we see a behavior, we understand the behavior, and then we try to modify it, because my middle one is actually on the spectrum. So we've been doing ABA with her since she was 3 years old.
Okay.
So now I'm taking the skills that I learned from that and trying to apply it to this type 1 daughter of mine.
Mm. Is it do you think it's helping?
Oh, there's actually a lot of different things and, coping skills and tools that I've learned with doing, because we've had other situations, mm-hmm. like where we've had to address it. This is kind of the biggest one so far in our type 1 journey.
Yeah. Well, it's very serious and sad.
Right.
It could really, because she's making decisions right now that go against her health in order to make other people happy, who she will one day learn are not important people to her at all. And that's
exactly.
Yeah, it sucks. I'll tell you, it doesn't strike me as completely healthy, but I think I'd go with a us against them tactic. I think I'd be like, listen, we don't care about people who don't care about us. And if this person doesn't care about your health, then we can't care about what they think. Like, that's kind of the vibe. Like, I don't know. Like, do you ever notice, like, are you married, Christina?
That's actually a whole like 3-hour conversation.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
yes, but no.
Forget married.
I've actually just recently filed.
Oh, okay.
So.
Well, have you ever been in, this might even be more poignant. You ever been in a relationship before? Do you ever notice that you never get along better than when you have a common enemy?
You know what? That's pretty funny. I've never thought of it, but
I think of it all the time. If my wife is pissed at somebody, I immediately jump on board. I'm like, yeah, fuck them. Because then because then she's like, he's on my team. I'm like, goddamn right I am. And then
well, then you just need to find more enemies and you'll have a great marriage, right?
Listen, it's a reasonable tactic. But being serious, like, by the way, I don't know that I wasn't being serious, but being serious, like when you have a common foe, you feel more aligned. And the way I've said this on the podcast before, I'm happy to say it again to you because I'm sure everybody hasn't heard every word. But when I caught my little brother smoking, what I said to him was, somewhere in a boardroom, there are 10 very rich people laughing that you're buying their cigarettes. Why are you doing that for them?
Right.
Like they are like, haha, there's kids out there buying cigarettes and I own a speedboat and I have 3 mistresses and a Lamborghini and my wife and a mansion and they're going to die so I can pay for all this. Like, why would you let that happen? And I think I have a very similar feeling about this. Like what I said earlier, I really believe in. Like, I'm not on the side of people who aren't on my side. So if you're doing something that is actively causing my health to deteriorate, well, you're not somebody I care about. Like, I can't possibly, why would I listen to you? You don't care about me. And and I don't know that if she's old enough for that or not, but I mean, it is. Well, it's
funny because that is so opposite of how I would actually approach it.
I know, that's why I brought it up.
And that and anything like I in life for me too, I wouldn't approach it that way. And her and I have completely different personalities.
Mm-hmm. She liked
it. So, maybe you're onto something there.
Well, because
I was going to go into like, well, my next plan is to do with doing what I did with my middle one. When we have this certain thing that we want them to do, like this good behavior, which would be in this case pre-bolusing, we would like do this. It's called a social story. Mm-hmm. So we would sit down and we would talk about, and kind of at her age, because she's older, I'd kind of more do it in a journalistic type of way.
Yeah.
Where we would sit down and either I could write in like, this is the situation that happened. This is now what's happening. This is how this would be a better choice to do. Like when we're at school and we're embarrassed that our friends are around, what are some ways that we could like not be embarrassed? And, maybe your thing is like, you know what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they think about me because
own it.
I don't really care about, am I going to be friends with them? No, I don't know.
Right.
Maybe.
It
really doesn't matter.
Christina, I have a comparison right now I don't know that I can make, but hold on. So first of all, why did I come to this? Because when we first got on, I wrote down Christina, California as like a possible title for your episode. And I know you live somewhere where people are really like tend to be thoughtful.
Shallow.
But like hippy dippy is what I was going for.
Oh yeah.
And not to say that what you're doing with your other child is, I'm going to sound all over the place for a second. I love what you're doing with your other child, and I love what you tried with this kid. What it ignores is the nature of people and that there is somebody else in this equation that you're not in control of. You're not parenting the boy or the other people.
Right.
Because now everybody is the boy to her. Now
100%.
She believes everyone is looking at her like that. When the truth is, almost nobody gives a shit about her. Like, nobody's thinking about her. That's the thing that kids miss.
Right.
Right? Like, that's why
they're all worrying about if they smell or not.
Yeah, well, oh my God, when the internet got bigger and I was like, and kids were like, they're bullying me. I'm like, online? Like, that they're not there. Like, you people needed to get bullied in the 70s, like where a boy held me under the water and was like, you're going to die. I was being bullied and like in a way that like could kill me in the moment. And you could shut your phone off and never hear from these people. And it's a hard lesson. And I know it's harder when you're a kid, but like I'm a person who puts my voice out into the world. There are plenty of people who don't like me. And some of them make effort to make sure that I know it. But you know what I do?
Oh.
I ignore them.
What?
I just don't listen to them. And that,
right.
You know what then? They don't exist. That's it. There's billions of people on the planet. I'm aware of about 45 of them in person. Everyone else doesn't really exist unless you let them. And
right.
I don't say you should I'm not saying hole yourself up and don't meet people. I'm saying be selective about who you let into your life. And if
right.
and she has to realize, first of all, the hardest thing to get is that boy probably thinks she's cute. And said, do you know what I mean? Like, that's the part you lose, is that he's like, he said I couldn't eat this, but blah, blah, blah. I used to kick girls in the hallway. You know which ones, right. Christina? The pretty ones.
The really
cute
ones.
Yeah. Like the ones I found attractive. I don't know why. Like, I can't explain to you why an 8-year-old boy, a 10-year-old boy would do something like that. It's stupid. I get it. But it's kind of how people's minds work. So,
and that's what I said to her, too. I said, he's probably thinking you're cute, like trying to make light. And she's like, Mom, no, that's so gross.
Well, yeah, she's not ready for that idea yet. By the way, I wanted to be clear about kicking. I don't mean full on curb stomping. I mean just reaching out with your foot and tapping people who were in front of you in line. You're just kind of messing with them, to get their attention because you want to be involved with them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's happened to a lot of us, right? It happened to me when I was 8 years old. I just liked it though.
Oh my God, Christina!
I would kick them back.
Get 1,000 people together and ask them to tell their story about how they got together with their significant other, and it's going to start off with, "I thought she was blank. I thought he was an idiot." Blah blah blah. Then we just turned out to be it just always goes like that. It's just not going to happen to you when you're 10. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah. But my point is that I think what she needs is agency. I think she needs power. I think she needs the confidence of, I'm just going to say it, of a lady in a top that doesn't fit her. She just needs that, this is who I am, and the rest of you, I don't give a shit. That in a nicer way, because she's 11. We have to nice that down somehow and fit it.
Well, and I think she would like to be able to say that too.
Yeah.
That's her personality.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm just
you think you're holding her back with your nice stuff.
Yeah. Oh. With my hippy dippy ways, right?
Look at you trying to get the title off of Christina, California. Very good. Nice to try.
Yeah.
Hippy dippy ways, not bad. I mean,
rainbows and sunshines over here.
It works when it works.
Right.
But it works when the person on the other side is thoughtful, understanding, willing to listen, emotionally mature enough to go along with that ride for you. And the truth is, she's not emotionally mature enough to go on that ride yet. You're painting a picture for her of the way things should be. And I don't disagree with it, but it's not her reality. And she can't even put herself in it because she probably looks at kids and thinks, she probably has thoughts like that about other kids too. So she's probably, so she's like, if I'm thinking this way, well, they definitely think this about me. I'll tell you that, I remember very vividly after a day of baseball, my son and I went to this diner. So he was playing baseball in New Jersey, and we were very close to where Kevin Smith's comic book store was. And I said, let's go there, and then we'll have lunch. There's a diner I know that's up the street. And so we did that. But because it was kind of like a cultural center, because Kevin Smith was very famous at the time, and he had this little comic book store, there was really nowhere to eat. So we went into this diner. It was packed. We waited our turn. My son's in his baseball stuff. I mean, it's what he lives in. He's comfortable. And the lady seats us. So it's a diner where there are booths. Say that. Booth? What's multiple booth?
Yes. Booths.
Booth? Okay. It sounds wrong. But there were a lot of, I can't do it. There were a lot of those ways of seating around the walls, right? Like down the walls. But in the middle of the room, there were tables. And that's all that was left. And we got seated at a table that basically was surrounded by 3 walls of people sitting in booths. And we weren't there very long. And I don't think my son was probably around your daughter's age or maybe a year or so older. And I looked up at him and I said, "Hey, are you okay?" And he was very, very uncomfortable.
Oh.
And I said, "What's wrong?" And he felt like everyone was looking at him.
Oh gosh.
Because he was center stage, like,
right.
And we talked about it. And I said, "I understand you feel that way." I said, "But I want you to really listen to me for a second. Like, look me in the face." I said, "Describe the other people around us." And he starts to look around. I went, "No, don't look at them. Describe them to me." And he goes, "I don't know. I haven't been looking at them." And I said, "Yeah, they haven't been looking at you either." And I said, and this is a hard lesson at a young age, but nobody cares about you. Nobody. These people are strangers. They're here eating. They don't have an opinion about you. I'm like, "Do you have an opinion about them?" And he said, "No." And I'm like, "And they don't have one about you. Nobody sees you. Not that you're invisible or that you're not important. You're very important to me. You're very important to yourself. But these people are strangers and they don't care. Like maybe one of them's looked up at you and thought, 'Oh, that kid just came from baseball. That's neat. My son used to play baseball.'" And I'm like, but that's it. Like if you think someone's looking at you right now going, "That kid looks odd or he's strange, or I wonder if he got a hit today," like, or all the things that you're concerned about, I promise you, they don't care. And it was comforting to him. It was honest,
well, and
but it was,
what gave you, like, I would have never thought to say that, look at all these people or all these people around you, describe them.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to put into his head that they're not looking at him. So I proved it to him by telling him, "Look,
like he didn't even know what everybody else looked like."
Yeah, you don't know what everybody else looks like. They don't know what you look like. They're not paying attention to you. They're talking at their table just the way you and I are talking right now. We don't know what they're talking about. And I think I said, like, "What do you think they're talking about?" And he goes, "I don't know." And I was like,
right.
Yeah, that's it. Like, people imagine things all the time. And I very recently was recording with a 9-year-old girl who has diabetes. And I have to admit, her parents tricked me into it. I totally thought I was talking to the mom and they didn't probably.
Oh my gosh.
So I get on to record early in the morning and there's like, "Hello." And I'm like, wait a minute, what is happening? So
right.
I figure it out. And listen, the kid was terrific. But she's still 9. She was limited in what she could talk about. So we started like, she lived in Canada. So but she didn't understand my sarcasm. So it was just terrific because I basically just made fun of Canada the whole time. Like we got into these conversations where I was like, "Hey, where you live? Like that's where Santa lives, right?" And she goes, "No." And I'm like, "Wait, well, Santa doesn't live in Canada?" And she goes, "No." I'm like, where does Santa live?" She goes, "The North Pole." I'm like, "Wait, the North Pole's not Canada?" And she's like, "No." And we're going back and forth. And at one point, I said something like, "How do you get to school? Like in a sled? Or like, how do you, like a 4-wheeler?" Or she goes, "I have a car." I'm like, "There are no cars in Canada." And she goes, "Yes, there are." And I'm like, "There can't be." And she goes, "There's cars in America." And I was like, "Have you ever been to America?" And she goes, "No." And I'm like, "Well, how do you know?" And she goes, "Well, there are cars in Canada." And I said, "Listen, are you in a room with a door?" And she goes, "Yes." And I said, "On the other side of the door, the side of the door you can't see, is there a clown standing there right now?" And she goes, "No." She goes, "No." And I went, "Are you sure?" And she goes, "I guess not." And I was like, I said,
"So now you're just trying to scare a 9-year-old."
No, I was trying to be funny on the podcast. And I was trying to teach the kid.
I'm joking.
And I was trying to teach the kid critical thinking. I said, there's
exactly.
probably not a clown on the other side of the door.
There's not a clown.
But you cannot definitively say that it's not there. And I said, and you're right. There are probably cars in America, but you've never been here, so you don't know for sure. And she's like, "Okay." And like, she got it. And I just think that we do a disservice to kids sometimes by not telling them the truth about the world. It's almost like, you know, when people say like, oh, my kid cursed, I was so embarrassed. Christina, do you know a human being that doesn't curse?
No.
Yeah. And the ones that don't, do you really trust them? You know what I'm saying? Right. So like my point is that everybody curses and we act like they don't. And then these kids walk around with this unrealistic expectation put on them. And I wonder if telling your daughter, be nice to people who are mean to you, like, yes, you should be nice to them, but I think there are caveats to that. I think it's, look, he doesn't understand. And maybe it's because he likes you, or maybe it's because he's an idiot, or maybe it's because of a million things we're not going to understand, but it's not important. We don't care about his opinion. That's what's important. Us as a family, we care about people who want you to be healthy. And people who don't want you to be healthy, not only do we not care about them, we don't want them to have influence over us, because the most important thing is you and your health. And that's it. And that's what I care about. So we're going to we're going to bolus for our foods, and we are going to correct if our blood sugar gets high. And we don't care who sees, because, you know, the truth is the people who love you won't care. Tell her that my daughter has 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 amazing friends in the world who would not care at all about her diabetes. They wouldn't say anything about it or make her feel bad about it. They wouldn't make fun of her. But that's because my daughter has culled those people together. Right. And you can't expect everybody to be that nice. I don't know. And I know it sucks to tell your kids that. And anyway,
maybe the direction that I always go is like, oh, you know, you don't know, maybe he's having a bad day. Maybe he thinks you're cute, you know, making excuses where really maybe that's not even helping her at all, because I'm not really empathizing with her.
Yeah, you're not hearing her concern, because you're saying, like, here's what you're saying. Mom, somebody punched me in the face today, and you said maybe he's having a bad day.
Yeah.
Well, I don't care if he's having a bad day.
Yeah, now your day's even worse.
Yeah, right. Well, I don't care if he's having a bad day. He can't punch me. Like there has to be walls. There has to be lines. Right. There has to be, we don't bend from this. Us as a family, here's our line. We don't go past this one. You don't get to make my daughter unhealthy. We do not stand for that. Anybody who would make that assertion. I mean, I think, and listen, I know the concern is you don't want to make your kids like these cynical little shits who are running around like saying like everybody sucks, and you know how people are. Like you have to explain it to them. Like, it's not everybody. It's not people. It's not society. There are a ton of great people in the world, and you're going to meet a lot of them. He's not one of them, or he's not one of them right now. He might be one day, but he's just not right now. And the problem is that we don't have the luxury of waiting for him to figure out how to be decent, because your health is injured every time we don't use your insulin. Like, to me, that's the message. I don't know. Like, I think,
you know, I'm really trying to find, so with her, she's kind of maybe my toughest one, has always been. She's the firstborn. Like, all of those firstborn things she does. Mm-hmm. You know, she's always right. Well, she thinks she is. I go to all these like chaperone things, you know, and so I see how she interacts with peers.
Yeah. And
she really isn't insecure. It really just comes to diabetes. Mm-hmm. And because like we were at this, and where I'm going with this is like, I don't think she's going to mind if I tell her, you know what? And all of those people that make you embarrassed, because she is the type of kid. We're at this camp, and at this outdoor camp, and there was this camp leader that kind of a lot of the kids didn't really like, because she was bossy and not very nice. And she's sitting there doing a STEM activity with some of her peer, classmates, and they're doing it. And this one girl just keeps telling her what to do, and keeps telling the group what to do. And she goes, "Oh, you sound like that girl.
Mm.
And I was like, Charlie. And she's like, what? She sounds like her. She's bossing all of us around. And so she's not one to not say something.
Yeah. No, I
like
think
when she feels like it.
You should empower her, honestly, without
Yeah.
making, like, don't turn her into an asshole. but
Well,
like,
so that's where I'm telling you that, because like sometimes I worry about that, because in that moment she's not afraid to do that.
But is she
it's just where do I get her to be that way about her diabetes?
So I think you're overthinking it. Is she a good kid?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what's more likely, that not taking care of her blood sugar is going to cause her health concerns, or that she's going to turn into an asshole?
I think I'm overthinking it, because
Yeah.
in that moment I would say like, yeah, but she could be if I tell her to go this route.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to be honest with you. If it was 1978 and this was happening, and it happened to me, my father or mother, or your father or mother, would have like gone to the person's house and said, hey, your son said something shit to my daughter. Tell him to apologize. And then you would have explained it to the parents. The parents would have whacked the kid in the side of the head and said, apologize to that girl. And then that would have been the end
Right.
of it, right? And if it would have went the other way, my father would have reached through the door, grabbed his father, banged his head off the door jamb, and then made the kid apologize. And I don't think any of that's right, but that is what would have happened back then.
Right.
And nobody sat around trying to pre-plan people's thoughts. Like I think, like, you're younger than me, right? How old are you?
I'm 38.
Yeah. You're a generation or so behind me in parenting. Like, I'm going to tell you the God's honest truth. You're not in charge of as much of the direction of your children as you think you are.
Right.
Yeah. Like, you're not going to be able to get her exactly to where you imagine her being. And the truth is that she's different than you. So even the roadmap you're going to lay out is a good road. Basically, you're parenting your daughter the way you wish somebody would have parented you. I'm doing the same thing, by the way. But mostly I'm not right. Mostly because it works better for Arden than it does for Cole, because Cole's more like Kelly and Arden's more like me. So Arden responds to how I think quicker. And Cole is more like, what are you talking about? But he's smart enough to listen, and he takes Cole cherry picks from my parenting. I watch him listen to me, and he'll say, why did you say that? And I'll tell him my thinking, and he'll go, okay, that makes sense. And then I'll see him adapt it, like, to his personality. But I'll also say things where he'll be like, that doesn't make any sense to him, and he will just ignore me. Whereas everything I say to Arden makes sense, because she and I are like, we're like the same person. So I say if I were to say him to my son might be like, oh, I don't know about that. Let me think it through. Where Arden would just be like, yeah, let's roll, Dad. like, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? And even now she's getting older. She's like, I don't know if this old man knows what he's talking about. So like, it just, I don't mean you, we, all of us. I think we've made this assumption over the last couple of generations that we are somehow just 75,000 great decisions away from making a perfect child. And it's not going to happen like that. Like, so I go with, have good intentions, be a good person, don't lie to people if you can help it, treat people the way you want to be treated. It's basically
don't lie if you can help it.
Yeah. Well, listen to me, Christina. You pull me over and say, hey, why were you driving so fast? I am going to start lying in circles, just so you know.
Right.
Because I want to get out of a ticket. But, if my wife asks me a hard question, I'm not going to lie to her.
Right.
And by the way, that's been told to me is not nice. I've had people say to me, like, well, just say what they want to hear. And I'm like, I find that insulting.
Right.
Right? Like, so if I love you or care about you, I'm going to be very honest with you. If I don't care about you, I'd be happy to lie to you to make you happy. But I won't lie to my wife. Even if it would make her day better. Like, and I wrestle with that sometimes. Like, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. It's the way it occurs to me. So anyway.
And what even is the right thing, right?
Yeah.
I thought
is her
we all
being,
think we're doing the right thing.
yeah, yeah. But is her being happy the right thing? Or is her understanding the honesty of the moment the right thing?
I think lying to make someone happy is a good in the moment thing. You know, things are great.
Right.
And maybe it'll never catch up. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But if you continue to do little ones here and there, it's going to catch up. And then in the long run, it's not better.
I have the other thing I find is that people are generally lying to themselves, and then they're asking
that's a big thing.
Then they're asking you to go along with the lie, and it's uncomfortable for them if you don't. So that's what I mean by you're lying to them to make them feel better.
Right.
And I'm not using my wife for any like big reason other than we've just got a long history together, and like it's, you know, it's come up a time or two where she's, you know, but I don't know if your friend is 300 pounds overweight and ordered 2 pizzas for themselves and said, it's healthy, right? Cheese is milk. And you go, yeah. Absolutely healthy.
Yeah.
Like that's the situation where I'm like, if you really cared, wouldn't you go, hey, like, no, like, pizza's not healthy, you know, like, right. and I love you and please don't eat 2 pizzas. Like, you know, and that's going to go poorly. They're going to be upset by that. And then so that's the question for me is like, what do you do in those situations? And I think it's case by case. And going back to your daughter, I've said this on the podcast for years. I've written about this when I used to blog about it. I don't care about anything as much as I care about my daughter's health. So this conversation you and I are having is I would deal with this no differently than I dealt with a school that didn't want to do the right thing for her, a teacher that didn't want her to check her blood sugar, or anybody else who would stand in the way of my daughter having low, stable blood sugars. Like, that's it. Like, I don't have any ability to be humorous about that.
Right.
I just don't. And by the way, I can't wait for the kid at the high school up the street with the loud truck to graduate and get the of this town, because every day at this time he drives past my house and makes that noise you just heard in my microphone. And I would pay him to drive down a different street if I could find him.
Well, is it good music though?
It's not the music, it's the truck. And he's got these he's got these loud mufflers on it, and he goes by. And I'm always, by the way, if you were talking, I could just be quiet and then cut it out. But anyway, not the point. Yeah. So what are you gonna do?
I think I'm going to use that approach. Let's see how it goes,
Like empower her, tell her there's nothing.
Let's try that. And then if it doesn't work, I'm going to go down my hippy dippy lane again,
You're not going to go slap shit out of the kid's mom?
No. Well, you know what though? I have this, this is just me. I will get so mad and so frustrated. And I have so many drafts in my inbox that are to the school, 2 different people that I'm just so mad about. And I'll write it up, and then I'll even go as far as sending it to one of my sisters to proofread. And then I'll kind of see what they say. Then I'll sleep on it, and then I won't send it. I'll be so fired up to send it, and then I don't send it.
No, I'm definitely.
It's just something that I do for me to cope.
Yeah,
but maybe I just need to send an email.
I don't know in this exact situation.
No, I wouldn't send an email in this.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't.
It was just
it's like journaling.
Yeah.
No, that's completely. I think that's incredibly healthy. Like I said, go in your car and talk to yourself. I don't care what you do. Just let it out so it's gone. But you're not gonna meanwhile, you're gonna do with a 10-year-old kid who says something stupid to another 10-year-old kid. There's not much you're gonna do about that. But I think the expectation that everyone's not always going to be as kind as we hope to be for people. And you have to learn how to be resilient about that. But resilient doesn't mean let someone shovel 10 pounds of shit in your head and you walk around and smile. It means when you see them coming with the shovel, you walk away, you get away from it. You know, resiliency is almost a little bit about not being a victim, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what I mean? Because once somebody does something terrible to you, you're victimized at that point. Like, it has happened to you.
Right.
And then what you're telling people is, no matter how terrible this is, keep a stiff upper lip, which, I mean, again, then that message is people are allowed to do terrible things to you, but you're a good person, so you smile. And I don't think that's right. That doesn't sound right to me.
It's not right. And I think it also is gonna, you know, we keep going the route of like, oh, they're just uneducated. Like they just say, even adults say silly things or stupid things. Or if we keep going around that route, it may becomes even more negative to her to have it. You know,
because
like she may even have resentment towards diabetes because people say all this stupid stuff to her and she doesn't stand up for herself.
Yeah. And those people, and you have to stand there and eat that sandwich over and over and over again. Instead of like, by the way, it's crazy as this sounds, I just put an episode up today about diabetes myths. And, you know, the first one we did is like why people have diabetes, which is always like you ate too much sugar. And there's a lot of like personal stories in there from listeners about like things that were said to them by family members and, you know, onlookers and everything else. And like the explanation in that episode is aimed at the people with type 1, which is like, you know, yes, people are going to be ignorant. They're not going to understand. Some of them are just going to be stupid or bad communicators. Some of them are going to be having their own pressures and they're asking you questions because they're scared for themselves and it gets, you know, masked. But the end result is you don't need to take that. Like you make a decision. You're either going to walk away or you're going to educate, which is probably going to be a waste of your time. Or you have a stock answer in your pocket. And actually somebody on the episode said, there's a link online. I forget what it was. But you can like hand somebody like a pre-printed like PDF that has a link and says, look, you're misinformed about diabetes, but if you want to learn more about it, go to this link. But you get away from them because, you know, because it's not your problem to suffer other people's misunderstandings. You know, and I don't know, like, I just think, you know, I know it sucks that your kids see this one girl and she seems bossy to everybody, but I bet you that person doesn't feel like this ever.
No.
You know, so, and could there be a better balance? Sure. But I'd prefer to be on the side where I'm confident and protected, than not feeling not confident and like somebody's like I'm now hiding who I am for somebody else.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not into that at all. So anyway, that kid.
Yeah.
That's what we should call this episode.
That's what it's called.
Yeah, I don't know. That's, you know.
No, it's interesting because for years, because this we go to a private school. She has been with kids since preschool. You know, now she's in 6th grade. So while we don't live in a small place, the school is kind of smaller. Like everybody knows each other, and everybody knows this kid. And for years, I've been telling her about this kid, like, you know, because there was at one point where I heard them talk, you know, the best thing to do if you want to know about your kids, I think everybody has heard this thing, but like just sit and drive them around and be quiet. And you can hear all kinds of stuff going on when they have friends in the car. Mm-hmm. But for years, this kid has been the topic of like, oh, you know, I've heard all of the misfortunes that have happened in his life, and they've talked about it at school, and then they talk about it in the car. Yeah. And so I know I have a heart for this kid because maybe he's having a bad day.
Yeah.
But at some point, that's probably not, I'm not doing it justice. She's not doing justice to him if everybody just, because he's from this and this is why.
Let me put it to you a different way and see how you feel. What if your daughter stops bolusing for her food and 4 times a day, her blood sugar spikes up to 250. And when she's 26, she needs laser treatments to stop bleeding in her eyes. Do you care how that kid feels now?
Oh no.
Yeah.
Well, you know what's so crazy is because I listened to that episode with the guy that had all the eye treatments.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I brought that up to her. I literally said to her, listen, because I've done like, I'm not going to try and scare her about this. I'm not going to, but finally I just got to the point where I said like, listen, I just listened to Juicebox and there was this guy that had to do eye treatments for years because of not taking care of himself and just being a kid and not caring.
Won't work though. She can't, her brain can't fathom the
No,
future.
it can't.
Yeah. And by the way,
So,
some adults' brains can't fathom the future. So
so that's, I think you're right. And
but that needs to be your motivation. I mean, like quietly in your head, you don't need to be telling her about it. You need to be saying, this is what I'm fighting for. Like, I'm not just fighting for an 11-year-old to feel comfortable at school. I'm fighting so that my 11-year-old doesn't turn into a 26-year-old whose A1C has been a 12 for 10 years. Like that's what you're fighting against. You're fighting, you're right now, your daughter is at a precipice and you're trying to stop her from slipping down a slope that she may slide down forever and nobody can stop her. Or by the time she figures it out, she's so far down the slope, it's hard to climb back up again. And to me, that's the bigger argument here is that I'm not so much defending today. I'm defending where today leads to.
Right.
That's how I think of it, I guess.
Yeah. And that's I mean, how we always should, right?
Christina, you're very agreeable. How did this marriage not go well? I don't understand. You don't have to tell me. I was just teasing.
If you wanna like another hour, we can split it up and I can tell you the whole thing.
No, it's your business. I was just joking around.
Yeah.
But no, I was trying to say, like, I was joking, but saying like,
I know.
It was cool of you to come on and hear something that was so like opposite of what you were thinking. Cause you have like a very thoughtful thing typed out here about all the like wonderful parenting ideas you're going to try.
I have it all lined up too. I have like, and this, I have one page to explain to you what ABA is. I have another that compares how I use it with my daughter who's on the spectrum and with my daughter who has type 1.
Yeah.
And then I have like all these, you know what though? This has been a great conversation.
I'm glad. Thank you.
And it may have even been good because I was totally going in a different direction as far as like, school's ending. I'm just gonna get her into a great routine where she doesn't mind doing it, and I'm gonna expose her to being with a lot of friends and doing it in front of friends. I had this whole like plan for the summer.
I don't think that's a bad plan, but she needs to be empowered.
Yeah, but
you know what I mean?
But like when I'm not, that's the thing. When I'm with her, it's great. And she's like all about it. We kind of team up,
right?
Because she's still 11.
Yeah.
Right.
No, of course. Yeah,
like I know when we go to volleyball tournaments, because she actually plays like at a high level. Her team qualified for junior nationals. We're going to Minneapolis. We travel all over the country, and she's like one of the best 11-year-old players in the country.
Yeah, proud of herself about that. Like, and feels very confident. That's the confidence you want to give her about her health. And what it takes to be healthy.
Right.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, that's why everybody listening, adults especially, like wear your pumps where people can see them, please. Like so little kids can see them and feel comfortable about it. And don't hide in the bathroom when you're at a restaurant. Like just pull your syringe out, give yourself insulin. And if people don't like it, who could possibly care? I don't understand. I mean, I just don't understand giving.
Well, I think I jinxed myself because I have this group of type 1 moms, and we like meet up and we'll talk about stuff. And at one of these meetups, we're talking, and I'm just saying, I haven't really run into Charlie. She'll just like pull her stuff out. Right at the table at a restaurant. Like
good.
we're out in public and she's like shoving it in her leg like nothing's going on.
I love
and that's why it was just so crazy to me that she went from just like, hey, it's me, to like, no, I'm just a normal sixth grader that nothing's going on.
Yeah, it's the peer thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the peer thing and the boy. And it could have been a girl too, by the way. It could have been a mean girl or a boy that she thought was nice or whatever. Who knows? Like I get it. Like you're watching a very normal child interaction, but it's just getting commingled with diabetes.
Oh yeah. And it's like, the tough thing is, and I think you've probably experienced this. Nobody gets how serious this really is.
Right.
You know, like they just like, no, like she's good. They say like, all the time, does she need a snack? Like I'll call to be like, hey, Charlie needs to, correct herself. And they'll be like, oh, should we have her eat something?
Right. Yeah. It's
like,
it's very frustrating.
No, she knows what it means. Just tell her she needs to make a correction.
Yeah. No, it's
because we don't have a school nurse.
Right. Very, very, very frustrating. And I know, but that's the thing that's why I think she needs to understand that mostly people aren't going to know her life. And, the truth is too, if you pulled this 10-year-old boy aside and said, you made this comment about her, blah, blah, blah. Do you know that could make her feel badly and start a chain reaction of events that could lead to serious health conditions for her in the future? That kid wouldn't understand both of those words, but that kid would understand enough to go, oh, I don't want that. Like, right. But how are you going to, you just can't explain that to enough people to stop her from having those situations. So you have to give her the shield and not just a shield, by the way, but like the
armor.
I mean, you want her moving. All of it. She wants to be moving forward, not just defending herself. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, just sort of like she hears that crap. She should blow through it like she's breaking down a wall of styrofoam. Just boom. I don't hear it. You guys don't understand. I'm clear that you're not clear, and I don't hear you, and I keep going. I listen to people who have my best interest at heart and understand my situation. Other people don't, nothing against them, but I don't take time to feel what they're saying because it's unimportant. It's just it's noise coming from nowhere. And you take it internally and it ruins days and weeks and years of your life.
Did Arden ever run into this?
Yeah, I mean, Arden's run into like mean girls before. But she always works through it. Like my wife was saying to me the other day, she's like, I'm so impressed with Arden's like emotional maturity because like she like even had a thing at school with a boy and another girl. And, like the boy might've liked Arden first. And then Arden was like, no, I don't think I'm interested. But then the girl kind of picked right up with him. And Arden was like, geez, like I thought we were closer than this. And like, that it starts that way. And then when it ends, Arden's like, you know what? It's fine. Who cares? Like, just like, if they're happy, then great. Like, like, I don't know how she does that. Like I was 18. Yeah, I would have been like,
that's a superhuman power for a college girl.
Yeah. She's just like, it's fine. Like Kelly could explain it better than I could, but she's just like, she's so good at just seeing the bigger picture and not taking on the parts of it that are, I don't know, unimportant.
It's the emotional inner, like girls are very emotional.
Yeah.
And sensitive. And it seems like she has that, wise beyond her years under control. Like, it's not a big deal. I say to my 4-year-old, is this a big deal or a little deal?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, no, I know.
Do you think you're going to marry that guy?
Yeah,
then it's not a big deal.
Right. But yeah, seeing the bigger picture, just understanding, like stepping back. It's just a macro approach to things. Like, could I be mad that this girl that I am friends with took up with a guy who liked me and blah, 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 like all that stuff. And in the end, like I even said to her at one point, I was like, what's it matter? Like, if you don't want to go out with him, what's the point? And she's like, yeah, I know. Like, just very like, she still needed to talk it through a little bit, but she got through
Right.
she got through it pretty quickly. I don't think I'll ask her on here the next time I'm on here, but I don't think Arden's ever cared what someone's thought about her diabetes. Like, she doesn't care when people joke about it, or you hear like a late night host make a joke about diabetes. Like, I don't even think she hears that. Like, I just don't think she cares about that at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I don't know.
And what, maybe it's that's all she knows. Her body has only known being poked.
Well, yeah, she wasn't like, she didn't grow to 10 without diabetes, and then suddenly people are like, oh my God, what's going on with you? But I mean, it doesn't mean that people haven't been like, what's that? She just had, I'll have her tell the story. She just had a situation in college where she's wearing her pod, and like, this will be horrifying for some people to hear, but her professor came up to her and points to it and goes, and the professor, like, she can do it better than me, but the professor's like British. So she's like, she came up to me and she's like, hey, then what's wrong? What's wrong with you, eh? And she like points to the, like, Arden can do the whole thing. And she points to the pump, and Arden goes, I have diabetes and I need insulin from this. And the woman's like, oh, all right. And then walks away from her. And Arden, like, she's like, when I talk to her, she goes, you want to hear something hilarious? And I'm like, sure. And then she tells me the story about the teacher.
Oh my God.
I know plenty of people who would turtle up over that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And that's, to me, like, look, everybody's got their line, right? But for most people, that's just a decision you get to make. Like, some people have psychological issues that would make it, it's just not a decision for them. But a lot of people, you can choose to be upset or not be upset.
Right.
And like, I don't know, like, have you never been in a conversation with somebody, and like, I watch it all the time online. I'm like, oh, this person wants to be upset. Like, I don't know if they really want to be, but it's their inclination to lean into being upset.
Oh yeah.
And I see it every once in a while. Like, like, I say stupid shit on this podcast all the time, like trying to be funny or just like lighthearted. Every once in a while I'll get a letter from somebody. It's like, well, you said this and it was very upsetting to the person you were talking to. And I'm like,
oh, no.
What? That doesn't make sense to me. And I go back and I look at the episode, I look at the person, I check my emails, and you know what? I have an email from the person I recorded with. Oh my God, I had such a great time. I hope everybody listening has as good a time as I did. Like, but this is an unforced email that's just sent to me later. Like, it was so funny and we got through so many things and blah, blah. Then I'll read a review of the same episode and I'm like, that's interesting. Because a person who isn't the person I interviewed has some clear thoughts about how the person I interviewed felt. But that's not how that person feels at all. So sometimes it's just, you put it on, like, they want to be upset.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Or they...
Yeah, no. I know there are people that I have a family member that we've seen go on to Facebook, but after a couple drinks, it's after a couple drinks usually. And so that's why sometimes did you check the time as to which that person sent it?
Yeah.
Were they a little liquid courage fired up?
As a person who manages a large online presence for people, I for certain know that there are some things where people are just drunky and then I just ignore it and it goes away very quickly. Yeah.
It's like, maybe don't go on social. That's where somebody needs to be truthful and not give the white lie and say, after a certain time, don't go on your social media.
Right. Or because then some people see that and they go, ooh, I get to be upset. That person misspoke. It's my turn. I get to be right. Here we go. Like that whole thing. And I don't know. It's just like, by the way, that example I used earlier, I was talking to a girl. She's like 23 years old. Her parents had like 7 kids. Right. And I said something along the lines of, wow, your dad must have never been home. Like, your dad must have just been that guy who like appeared every once in a while, tapped your mom on,
because he doesn't want to be around.
Yeah, smacked your mom on the ass in the kitchen and walked away. And I paused and I went, because if you're going to make 7 kids, you got to keep it hot. And it's just such a dumb statement and clearly meaningless. And the girl like paused for a minute because she's just a sweet kid. Like she's 20, but she's 23. And then that's the other side of it. Like you can't run around going like, you got to treat people equally. That's how I would have talked to anybody. She's 23. And by the way, she had a great time in the conversation and sent a long email about how lovely it was and how much fun she had and how she hopes people appreciate it and enjoy it as much as she did. But one person heard that and said, that's inappropriate. I'm like, it's inappropriate to you. It wasn't inappropriate to her. And if it was, she could have said so. And at the end of every episode, and Christina, you're about to have this experience, I'm going to shut off the recording and say to you, is there anything we spoke about today that made you uncomfortable that you don't want in the recording? Please tell me now. You cannot hurt my feelings. It's absolutely fine.
Oh, wow.
And you'll get to answer that question, just like she did. And by the way, it's not a rule. I could just delete the file. Like I record every day. If we would have got to the end and that girl would have been like, hey, that thing you said 45 minutes ago about my dad smacking my mom on the butt, like it made me so uncomfortable. It ruined the rest of the recording for me. And I didn't know how to speak up about it. I would be like, that's fine. Let's just get rid of it.
Yeah.
I have no trouble with that whatsoever. Like I don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable, but I also don't want to make a boring podcast that nobody will listen to. And so, anyway.
Well, it's all about expectations, right? Like if you have an expectation of someone, like, does this person expect you not to make jokes? If they've listened to it before, shouldn't their expectation be, oh, he makes jokes, like every episode there's jokes.
Yep.
So why are they getting disappointed if they know that that's what the like don't have these expectations of you to be, buttoned up and polished,
right,
and not make jokes.
Yes,
when that's the type of podcast you have.
Right. It's. I can't go through the whole thing, but like it's silly and fun and poignant because if it's not interesting. Like Christina, like I'll sound like a douchebag saying this, but this isn't the only diabetes podcast. But it is the only one that is listened to with any frequency enough to put it on any kind of like Apple or Spotify list that shows you that like there are a lot of people listening to this. So I'm not saying that somebody else isn't out there saying something that might be really valuable for people with diabetes. They very well may be, but they're not, their episodes are not being listened to 50, 60,000 times. They're not like, like I just looked at something the other day because I have to stay in business too, right? Like I have to get advertisers and stuff like that. So I posted somewhere, just looking for new advertising. And here's what I said. By the way, it's the middle of a month right now. I said, so far this month, over 50,000 devices have downloaded over 290,000 episodes of this podcast. Why is your company not on one of them? Right? Like that's my kind of like my pitch for that. You trust me when I tell you that if we took all the other diabetes podcasts and added up all of their downloads, you're not getting anywhere near that number. And I will tell you it's because this isn't boring. And it's not bland and it's not sterile and it can be entertaining. And you might hear something you don't expect. Like for instance, today a lovely woman from California came on with a lot of great ideas about how to be a good parent. And some guy who grew up in the 70s was like, why don't you just tell him to shut the up? And you went, boy, that might not be like, I don't know if people will really hear it, but there was a minute in this conversation when you thought, oh God, I'm parenting my daughter the way I would want to hear this, not the way she would want to hear it. You had that moment. And if on any other podcast, I would have been like, oh my God, ABA, tell me more about it. Yeah.
Well, and can I tell you though, that I think that's also where you're hitting the nail on the head with the podcast is when you pull it up, I'll pull up your podcast. Mm-hmm. Like if I have a drive and I listen, I'll go and I'll scroll. And I was so excited that it's one you just did, because, I was all prepping and getting ready to talk to you. And I was so excited that one of your newer ones, there was a reality TV guy on there.
Yeah, wasn't he good?
I could not wait to hear about this reality show.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm like, oh, should I go try and watch that show? It had nothing to do. Like you guys had great, conversation,
mm-hmm.
and it was a great topic. And I think everybody should get some knowledge from it. But I also loved listening to the not diabetes stuff. And in this diabetes world, you kind of don't want to talk about it all the time.
Oh,
we're normal people too,
I could make a dry episode of this podcast that was so factually clear and great for your management and all that other stuff, but I wouldn't listen to it. So if I'm not going to listen to it, how would I expect you to listen to it? Like when people already have enough trouble understanding their health needs and the things that they should be doing. They don't want to listen to a pamphlet be read to them. And no one else understands that. Like, I haven't heard a lot of other people's like content, but mostly it's just dry. And I'm like, oh, it's so irritating. I would never make it through this. I'd sooner just throw myself in front of a truck. Like, than just sit and it's hard. Like, I had this time, one time I was consulting for a company and they said, hey, one of our things came up on a podcast. Would you listen to it and tell me what you think? And I was like, yeah, okay. So I'm listening and I texted back to the person and I was like, where is the comment? Because I don't think I can make it through all this. This is so boring and terrible. And that person was paying me to listen to it, to give them my opinion. And I was like, I can't do this. I was like, who listens to this? Like, it's like when you watch a bad TV show and you think, I don't think the director's mom made it through this.
No.
And I just think that way about this. Like, in the end, I told somebody recently, I think my job is to trick you into taking better care of yourself by interlacing the things you need to know about diabetes into a conversation that doesn't feel like it's about diabetes.
Right.
That's all. Like, I mean, we talked about some really important stuff today for people who are raising kids with type 1, but I said about 50 stupid things while we were talking. But it keeps you
I don't
going.
think it was that many.
You don't think it was 50? I don't know.
No.
I actually said something I think I might cut out. What do you think of that? I was like, that might have been too far. But it makes a perfect picture to me in my head. And so, like, I figured, well, that might work for other people too. Anyway, Christina, I know what we've learned here today. You're a little too hippy dippy. I'm fantastic.
Hey, you know what though? Yeah. I've been called that before. I like my oils.
I didn't say anything like that. Maybe you should put some lavender in the diffuser and see if it fixes the whole thing. By the way, nothing wrong with that. Yeah. It just ain't gonna fix anything. Like, it's still lovely. You know what I mean? We were talking about that in one of the episodes, Jenny and I said, like, at some point in this episode, I am going to make fun of your diffuser. So if you can't handle it, you should stop listening now. And we had like a nice moment where Jenny's like, look, I love essential oils. And she's like, but they're not going to cure your diabetes. And I was like, right.
They're not.
Right. Yeah. And so, and I said the same thing. I'm like, Arden tells me all the time, like, sometimes she's stressed out. She has a little diffuser in her room. And she's like, it's lovely. And I'm like, yeah, it's great. I have no trouble with that in the world. I have trouble when I hear people say, I forget what the example I used in the episode. I was like, my lumbago went away because I diffused this with this. Like, that's not how that works. So, but anyway, you're really lovely. Thank you for coming.
No, you're lovely too.
Oh, nobody ever calls me lovely back. Thank you.
or what's the word for boy lovely?
I don't know. I'm all right. I'm all right with lovely.
Charming.
Oh, am I charming?
Yeah.
I was talking to a girl from South Africa the other day, and she goes, I just want to say something about your accent. And I was like, oh, here it comes. I'm like, go ahead. And she's like, I love your voice. And I went, oh, never mind. Go on.
Go on.
I'm going to go downstairs right now and tell my wife that I'm charming. And then I will I will time how long she laughs, and I'll tack that time onto the end of this episode.
Yes.
She'll be like, they don't know you.
Well, you're charming enough to have people want to come on your podcast. And for somebody to say they like your accent or love your accent.
How nice you are, Christina. All right. When I get rid of my wife, I'm going to call you up. This was lovely.
Okay.
By the way, I'll get a note about that. At the end, it was so creepy. He told this woman that, shut up.
Yeah, tell them to send the note to me.
Yeah, you don't understand. If you had that thought just now, you don't understand sarcasm. That's all.
No.
Like, go figure it out. It's a lovely way of.
Or they're a new generation.
You think so? A little.
Yeah, it's the generation, and then the ones that are older that comment on things, they're just angry and bored.
Okay. And the younger ones are too, what are they? Too touchy?
They're brainwashed.
Brainwashed. All right, Christina, there we go. That was the least California thing you've said the whole time we were on. That was excellent. Look at you.
Yeah.
Go, Christina.
Yeah, look at me.
You don't want to tell the kids anything else?
I have opinions. I have other opinions about different things. It's parenting that I'm a little more gentle about.
Oh, cool. So I could have taken you down a different road.
Remember, I grew up in Idaho. Yeah. So we shoot things. We eat lots of meat.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, I think what Christina's saying is if you mess with her kid, she's going to barbecue you.
Yeah, you just have to hit that button. I did call the boy a motherfucker. Remember?
At the beginning, you were like that. Yeah. Oh, yeah. By the way, it's funny because in that whole conversation, I thought that was the only time you actually connected with your kid.
Really?
Yeah. Like when you said that kid's a motherfucker, I thought that kid probably thought, yeah, mom is on my side.
Yeah.
That's how it seemed to me. Like, good. Like, look at her. This made her so upset. She's so upset at how someone treated me that she said something out of character and she is 100% on my side. Like, that's how I think that probably made her feel. That's for me. I don't know. I could be wrong.
It probably did.
Yeah. Also, I don't know what I'm talking
She was into it until she was like, but I don't want him to get in trouble.
Well, see that? You made her too nice.
Yeah, I made her too nice.
I mean, I don't want the kid to get in trouble either.
Now I'm going to question my entire life.
No, just the last
I'm joking.
11 years, not the whole thing.
Sure. Not the whole thing, just the last 11 years.
Oh, gosh. I wish everyone could have senses of humor that include thick sarcasm. You guys would all have a great time. Yeah. So, all right.
Come on, guys.
I appreciate this very much. Hold on 1 second for me, okay?
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you now if I said anything that made you upset that you need to have taken out. So, but I want to do that privately so that you don't feel like pressure. Okay. Hold on.
Okay.
I really want to thank Christina for coming on the show and having such an open-minded conversation with me. And I'd also like to thank the Contour Next Gen blood glucose meter, contournext.com/juicebox. If you're enjoying the podcast, please share it with someone else who you think might also enjoy it. Subscribe in an app like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Stitcher, wherever you get your audio at. And of course, check out the private Facebook group, Juicebox Podcast, Type 1 Diabetes. I think you'll like it. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be back very soon with another episode of the Juicebox Podcast.